Welcome to the Long Island Sound Podcast, where we explore the muse and the music, from the North Shore to the South Shore, from New York City to the Hamptons, navigating the wellspring of original music from singer-songwriters and musicians from Long Island, New York. Hi, I'm Steve Yusko from GigDestiny.com. Stay tuned as we explore the Long Island Sound. Tune up your mind and pin open your ears. What a great guest on the podcast today. Toby Tobias brings a diversity of musical influences, from his birthplace in South Africa to his education in Jerusalem, and finally to the shores of America. There is a spirit of joy and the guidance of hope in the music of a man who navigates turbulent waters to bring us to safe harbors. Check out his song, Happy to Be Alive.
This morning, happy to be alive, and the sun shines on my pillow. Whoa. And I see no reason to walk around with a frown, 'cause you might not be here tomorrow. Whoa, yeah. And if you think your life is one tragedy after another, well, so many people out there dying and crying. Whoa. And if you think about it, and you're living life for the moment, then you know that you'll always see your life, see your life, see your life and shine through. See your life, see your life, see your life and shine through. See your life, see your life, see your life and shine through. Yeah, see your life, see your life, see your life and shine through. When I was a young boy, no one could understand me. No one took the time to know me. Yeah, oh. But now that I'm older, I'll never forget you. I'll always be a child of Africa. Yes, Africa. Now I'm living in America. I came here when I was 27. I'll always look back to where I came from. Whoa. I'm happy just to be here, 'cause I feel that I belong here. 'Cause I know that I'll always see my life, see my life, see my life and shine through. See my life, see my life, see my life and shine through. See my life, see my life, see my life and shine through. Yeah, see my life, see my life, see my life and shine through. See my life and shine through. Yeah, see my life, see my life, see my life and shine through. See my life, see my life, see my life and shine through. Yeah, see my life, see my life, see my life and shine through.
I'm really excited about our special guest today. He was born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa, studied music in Jerusalem, and now calls Long Island his home. Immersing himself in many genres of American music, he never left his roots behind, as you'll experience the rhythms and melodies of his homeland. Toby Tobias is well known around Long Island as he brings along some of the area's best musicians in his ensemble. He brings truly a spirit of joy and hope to what I call the Long Island sound. And with that, I say, welcome to the podcast, Toby. Good to have you.
Well, Steve, this is really so great to be here. And I really appreciate your asking me to join you this afternoon or this evening. Thank you so much.
So I got to tell you a little inside story. I started taking guitar lessons from Mike Nugent, who we both know.
Yes.
And when Mike goes over his resume, he always mentions you. And I had not known you. And only recently did I really get into your music. And I was listening to the songs that our audience is going to hear. And I'm not kidding you. It raises the hair on my arms now. There's a great sense of joy and hope in your music. And man, if we don't need that right now, I don't know when we need it. And it's a real blessing what you bring to the table and what people are going to hear. So you're my first international guest, so to speak.
Wow.
So welcome.
Well, yeah. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. And just getting to Mike Nugent, yes, definitely. We go back many, many years. Well, not as long as some people here on Long Island, but at least 10 years. He recorded and mixed my first album, Africa, You Belong to Me. And it was an interesting experience for both him and myself. It took quite a long time, but we finally got it off the ground. And he's played in a number of my ensembles with me, and we've collaborated on quite a few things, musical experiences. So I've got a lot of respect for Mike Nugent. So thank you for bringing up his name.
Yeah, Mike is one of those guys. My experience has been he just adds a certain amount of spice and flavor to everything that he plays on. He really does, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yes, he does.
He's a unique guy. So let's do this. Let's turn back the pages. I'm really interested on how music found you. Was it very early, later in life? Was it in South Africa? How did music find you?
When I was 13 years old, a boyfriend of my sister came over to our house with his classical guitar.
Okay.
And he played a piece by a Spanish composer, Fernando Sor, and I was mesmerized. And then he invited me to see a concert at the Classical Guitar Society of Johannesburg.
Okay.
And after that, I was hooked. And that started my journey that I've been on for the last, I'd say, 53 years. I started playing guitar when I was 15. So
amazing. And did you pick up the nylon classical guitar, or did you go with any other instruments early on?
Well, I think after a certain period of time, I studied classical music for about 5 years. And then I found a Yamaha 6-string acoustic guitar in the window in a music store in Johannesburg. And that really turned me on to folk music. There was a vibrant folk music scene in Johannesburg. I remember starting to play in the bars and some small nightclubs when I was 18 years old and seeing other fantastic musicians play. So I was introduced to acoustic folk music at a really young age, but I only started to play that genre or that style of music when I was about 18.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's let me ask you this. Did any other musicians in your family, any other influences besides the epiphany of the classical guitarist who came into your life, or it really just sprung from there?
Yes, as a matter of fact, my grandmother, I'm told that she played the triangle in an old-aged orchestra. But other than my grandmother Esther and myself, not one person in my family, from my father or my mother's side, ever touched music. So I'm the only one. But it's interesting.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's interesting that you point that out. But one of my sons, his name is Josh. He lives in Baltimore. He has created a wonderful music career for himself down there. And I have 3 sons, and the other 2 are big music lovers. And it just shows you that whatever you bring into the house is as part of the family upbringing the children will imbibe that and take that to either good or evil purposes. So I'm...
What's interesting, it's true, because sometimes you never know the influence that you have on people, and sometimes you can see the fruits of that influence. And I got to tell you, just this weird story came to my mind. I haven't thought about this in years. As thinking about my own family, and the joke is we played the radio.
I've heard that
very
one
well
before.
But my mom told me a story. Now we have something in common. I'm of Polish descent from my great grandparents.
Oh, beautiful.
And my mom. My mom knew a little bit of Polish, but I said, "Mom, did you ever play an instrument?" She actually handed me a mandolin that she started playing, which I thought was the coolest thing, and I refurbished it as best I could when I was a teenager. But she played the glockenspiel, right?
Yes.
She did okay with it until she had to march in the band with the glockenspiel, and it was like chewing gum and walking at the same time. That was the end of the glockenspiel days, because the walking they should have put her on a float in the parade or something. She probably would have.
That's funny.
Really jumped from it. So you start with this classical upbringing. You get introduced to folk. When did the songwriting hit you? When did you say, "Hey, I you know what? I can write some songs"?
What happened was that I left South Africa in 1978, and I moved to Israel. I moved to Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem I met kids my age from America, and and I met my future wife, a tall or a curly-haired, beautiful woman from Far Rockaway, Queens.
Okay,
and anyway, the American community of people that I met there introduced me in quite a large, in a large way, to American music. I got introduced to Steely Dan in the early 1980s, and rock and roll in a really big way. And I think it was that influence that really kind of set the tone for me taking up the guitar in a more organized and focused manner.
Okay.
And so I guess I must have been about, I started to write songs when I was about 20, 21.
Okay.
And go ahead.
So it became deliberate, I guess, for you at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I created this opportunity. I was drawn to the guitar at that point. I was really, I felt an affinity to play the guitar, and I whatever knowledge I had about the guitar and about music, I started to use that knowledge and create melodies. Melodies have always come very easy for me. I was influenced by the sounds of the gardeners, the black gardeners outside my house, who they sang their tunes and whistled their melodies, which they brought with them from hundreds of miles away, all the while tending the lawns and gardens of the white middle class. But so those melodies stuck with me to this day, and I use those melodies in my songs all the time.
That's great.
And of all the different facets of how a song is built, a melody comes very, very easy to me. And then, of course, melody is very closely connected to rhythm.
Sure.
And so then there's that beat, that African sound that I'm hearing most of the time. And again, that's also incorporated into my music as it stands today. And then in 1981, I was still living in Jerusalem. Somebody told me about a course, a brand new course at the Rubin Academy of Music in Jerusalem that was starting, and it was a 4-year degree in jazz composition.
Okay.
And I went and I tried out to get in, and they gave me a shot. And that was the start of 5 years or 6 years actually, of amazing musical knowledge, where I met musicians from all over the world, the best teachers, the most magnificent performances. One of the performances that really sticks out in my mind from the Reuben Academy was a summer concert by Wynton Marsalis, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, and Tony Williams on drum. 18-year-old Wynton Marsalis. They played in the concert hall at my academy, because they were doing a big concert in Jerusalem, or in Israel in general, and they came to give a master class to the academy, and people were hanging off the rafters to watch this. It was
I got to ask you this. So do you audition for something like that? Do you actually play, or is it Yeah, you had to be nervous. I mean, if it's something you really wanted and were intrigued by, how was that day for you?
It was.
Bring me back to it.
Yeah, that's an excellent, beautiful question. Thanks, Steve. It was a very hot day. Obviously, Jerusalem in the summer is extremely hot. Mm-hmm. And I come into this room, and I'd never met these people before, but they gave me a chance to play some of the pieces on my Yamaha acoustic guitar. Okay. And I guess they saw something in me that there was a spark that really wanted to learn music. And I think also they were looking for candidates for this 4-year degree. So they were fishing for bodies, I think, at that time. No, but seriously, I auditioned and I was accepted. I didn't have good grades in high school, so I had to kind of push my way into the academy,
right.
on the basis of my skills, my talents, as well as my determination to learn more about music. And I'll never forget my first teacher. The first year in school, at music school in Jerusalem, was kind of like a preparatory course on understanding not only the language. You had to understand, because everything is taught in Hebrew, but also give you a good basis and foundation of the musical language. So that first year, my first teacher was an Orthodox Jewish woman from St. Petersburg, Russia.
Oh, boy.
And if I look back now, her name was Dr. Bella Bergina, Orthodox woman. She was a doctor of music, and she gave me such a beautiful foundation in music that no other influence can even come close to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. By the way, I just want to make just a side note. Everyone we mention, everyone that Toby mentions, I'm going to put a link in the chapter marks in this episode so you can find out more information about Bella and the Wynton Marsalis and kind of maybe see a video and give you some deeper knowledge of what maybe Toby was experiencing. And I'm just kind of amazed. I believe there are no coincidences, but God puts people in our lives, and if we grasp that ring and take it. And the other thing I was thinking about as you were telling me that story about having that desire, and I remember being in a church group, and the leader of the band said, "You know what? You don't have to be the best at your woodshedding your instrument, but if you give me somebody who's got that desire, I can do amazing things. I can really bring them along." And maybe that's the spark that they saw in your eye and give you that foundation to kind of build on.
Definitely.
Hey, I do want to talk about this. This is going to be a left field thing.
Sure.
So coming into the podcast, our audience heard "Happy to Be Alive." Now, I played this for the past 2 days, okay? And I'm driving home from work today along Ocean Parkway, and I'm listening to it over and over again, trying to figure out, okay, what might be the best song to play in. But another thing struck my mind. You're in South Africa during apartheid, right?
Yes.
You're in Jerusalem, and now you're in the United States.
Yes.
And I saw a thread of tumultuous countries or countries with tumultuous periods. I'm not blaming you, Toby. I'm just saying it's interesting that you're in these places now. And I really tie it to what's happening in America today. I'm not getting political, but it's scary times. And the thread of hope and joy in your music is just very enlightening to me. And that's what kind of really, it made me happy. And I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt. I'm just saying, man, it's so timely. And I think the others, and I'll let you expand upon this, but I'm thinking stress and sacrifice and turmoil and tragedy is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is hope and happiness and looking to the future. And that's what I think music brings to us. And thank you for bringing that to me.
Wow.
So I'm curious. I mean, you've been in interesting places, you know, and interesting experiences. How's that shaped you?
Wow.
And your music?
Wow, it's what you've just said is a mouthful, especially when it comes to describing my journey and my arriving in this land, you know, this foreign land in a way.
Sure.
We all speak the same language, but our cultures and our backgrounds, our ethnicities are so different. And so I had to kind of learn how to be an American while still retaining my African roots. And I think that happy to be alive is connected to that concept about arriving in America with all the obstacles that I never knew existed. But there were obstacles these last 33 years living here. And but it touches on a kind of a more real concept here, is that this leaving one tumultuous country after another to arrive here, and you know, I'm also not trying to be political, but the same things that I saw in South Africa and the same things that I saw in Israel exist here in America. And the show that I've created with my co-partner and my colleague, my musical colleague, his name is John Goldstein. We've created this show called Journey from Johannesburg.
Oh, right. I saw a video of that. Yeah. That you did.
So I think that really is the connection between, you know what you're talking about, is that I'm trying to understand how each time I'm leaving a place where there's so much turmoil, especially related to, apartheid, to segregation.
Sure.
All three countries have that about them, and I just can't seem to get away from it. And
right, but you know what? Let me throw this in. I'm going to interrupt you. And
sure, go ahead. No.
Is that I think we need to have a witness like yourself, who's been in another culture, that you can point to and say, "Hey, look, man, this is bubbling up here. Wake up, everybody! Yeah. You know, let's call it out." And yet, we're going to leave the song to the end, which is "Rise Up," and will remind me to talk about that and connect the thread back to this, if you would, for me.
Definitely.
But let's do this. Let's take a little break, and when we come back, I really want to talk about how do you immerse yourself in a new culture, yet retain your identity. Yeah. It will be back with Toby Tobias. Everybody, hang in there. Are you a singer-songwriter who wants to take your music to the next level, and you need some professional musicians and really that expertise to help you along? Well, check out Melts in Your Ears Studio. It's Mike Nugent's studio. If you like what you've heard here today, Mike's the guy who can make the connections, put the tracks together, and give you a quality product. Check it out. Hey, everybody. We're back with Toby Tobias. I'm telling you, I don't know where these conversations are going to go, but I'm finding them very interesting. I'm very intrigued, Toby, about your background, where you've been. Just to recap, we spoke about, coming from countries in turmoil, And Toby's music, at least what I've heard so far, has a spirit of joy and hopefulness, which is perfect for our times. So what's interesting to me, Toby, is that you've transitioned from a South African culture to a culture, Israeli culture in Jerusalem, to one in the United States. My question is, how do you immerse yourself in a culture yet be true to yourself? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that's a great question, and it's a difficult question to answer just because of the nature of our lives. I was even saying can't. I can't even imagine how difficult it would have been if I was so stubborn as to retain my South Africanness and not accept the Americanisms that infiltrated my life.
Right.
In order for me to be understood at certain points, I had to change the way I said words. Otherwise, I'd be on the phone for half an hour speaking in my South African accent, and people wouldn't understand me. So even from that angle, I started to change the way I lived in America, how I spoke, how I interacted with people. I brought my kids up on Long Island in Nassau County. So there's a certain kind of protocol.
Like a vibe.
Yeah, I guess a vibe that I needed to learn how to be part of. And I did. But I've never let go of who I am and where I've come from. And as I spoke to you I mentioned at the beginning of our show, before we were on, is that even though we speak the same language, we come from different cultures and different backgrounds and even ethnicities. And that informs my life over here. I always retain my roots, my background, my culture, but I am a very proud and happy American, if that makes sense. I'm very well ensconced in American life here on Long Island, or Long Island life. Let's put it to that way.
So now that leads me to assume that having been through multiple cultures, and I think one of the stumbling blocks I had in business, I traveled to the Far East. I knew how to sell to Americans. My biggest concern was not to offend. And to sell in Asia, there's something like things I never would have thought of. You don't touch somebody with the left hand. You don't show the bottom of your feet. Wow. It's offensive. These little things that, if I'm an arrogant New Yorker, like, what the hell do I care? It's the bottom of my shoe. We all have, shoe, bottom of our feet and that sort of thing. But I didn't want to offend. And then in the reverse, the reciprocal of that is coming into a culture and getting an assumption of an interaction that might offend you that you have to pause with. You have to pause and go, okay, am I seeing what I'm thinking, or there's some other meaning in this interaction? I'll give you an example. I had a good priest friend who was from Ghana. And in Ghana, when they go to church, dressed to the nines. I mean, Easter, it's dressed to the nines. He came to Babylon, and everyone looked like they probably were. As soon as services were over, mass was over, they were going to the beach. So they were dressed for the beach. And he was astounded, I would say, astounded and almost offended. And that draws an inference to the people of they have no respect or what have you. Okay. Yeah. Now let's take that into music. Okay. So now you're switching gears from culture to culture. Yeah. And I want to talk about musically.
Yes.
Which is one of the things that's in your EPK, electronic press kit, for those who don't know, that talks about the diversity of music that you embrace. Okay. And for me, I'm going to give you my observation. I immediately saw it in the arrangement of your music. That kind of stood out to me. I'm like, oh my God, that's Paul Simon's Graceland type of vibe to it. which is a huge compliment, by the way. And so that familiarity came into your music besides, and then the horns and all that. And I'm like, this is so cool. And I've spoken to other singer-songwriters who are very good arrangers, and they put a lot, the arrangement is, lyrics, yes, certainly, the melody, but the arrangement, man, that just really kind of brings. Anyway, I'm yapping too much.
No, that's fine.
I'm interested in your take on the diversity that you bring to Long Island, to your music, where you are today, and that sort of thing. Okay,
well, Steve, I think what strikes me in that question is I might have been explaining in these previous sentences with you how we're all different. How I saw myself as being different from America, or from Americans, from Long Islanders. Got a different accent. I come from a different place, and sometimes, whenever I walk into a store, I open my mouth, and immediately people turn around, like, "Where's this guy from?" And they'll always say, "Hey, oh, you're from England." They'll always assume that I'm from England. So that
British,
I had to kind of correct them. I've been correcting Americans for the last 34 years.
Nice. But keep it up.
Right.
There's a lot of correction we need.
but the truth is that human beings all over the world are the same. We all want the same things. We all breathe the same air. We all have the same blood coursing through our veins.
Right.
We all want happiness and tenderness and sensitivity for our families, for our friends, for our community. And so at the same time as I saw myself as being different, I recognized, and I still recognize, and it's like part of my philosophy really on life, if I come to think about it, how we really have to all get together and understand that we're not going to be able to change anything in this world if we don't recognize that we're all the same. And I just want to, I always quote this quote by Nelson Mandela. In his book, Long Walk to Freedom, he said, "No one is born hating another person because of his background, his religion, or his culture. You have to learn to hate. And if you can learn to hate, well, then you can learn to love, because love comes much more naturally to the human heart than its opposite." And that has always been my mantra these last many, many years. That no matter where we're from, we can always have differences of political opinion, musical opinion, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we can all sit down and at least talk to each other and understand where that person is coming from. Even the person who, for whatever reason, doesn't like me and doesn't like my views or my political intentions, whatever that might be. But if he heard me, and if I heard him and understood him, I'm certain that after a half-hour conversation, we would be good friends, that we would understand each other, that everything comes from something that took place in a person's background to make him or her the way he or she is. So let's understand that and get over that hurdle and rise up throughout the world and grab the hand of your brother and put your arm around your sister and say, we're all one. We can all do this together. That is my credo that I've lived with and I continue to live with to this day.
I tell you, I have a confession to make because, in speaking about this and considering what's happened politically over the past number of years here in the United States, there's a great divide. It's there. We see it in our discourse between our politicians. We see it in our families. I think it got exasperated during COVID for a lot of reasons. And my confession is this, is that if I had a real difference of opinion with somebody that I've labeled as, man, they're off their rocker, they're fascist, they're this, they're that, I maybe intentionally isolated myself from those people, let's say, which is a horrible thing to say, those people, right? So I'm calling myself out. And I think we can only change the things that we can change, and it's got to start internally, right? In the light that we put out there. And I get in my soapbox every once in a while, maybe, I don't know. But I think about that, and I have to change my perspective. I have to look at exactly what you said. I see that light in someone else. They want joy and happiness, and prosperity in different ways, but we all kind of want the same thing. But we have to, rise up and have these kind of conversations. And that's the struggle. That's the struggle. But that's the conversations that I think music brings to us in subtle and strong ways, depending on what you're listening to. And to hear a song that might remind me, it could be the melody in the song, but the theme of the song of, hey, I'm going to approach my brother-in-law who I may have difficulty with, but he probably wants the same thing I want. And we're not going to talk politics, but let's talk about what we have in common and have a common ground starting point. So that's my confession for today's episode. It happens every once in a while, but
I honestly believe that. Let me take a step back and say,
sure,
there are people that I cannot listen to or that I cannot talk to. I'm not saying that I'm this
altruistic.
Well, I am altruistic to a fault, actually.
Okay.
Which is not a really good thing in today's world, because people take advantage of that. But there's certain people who create obstacles for me, especially loud people, and people who are not considerate of me and my time, and of who I am. And so there are people that I will not engage with, no matter what their political persuasion is.
I follow you. There's
and there are a lot of loud people in this world. And I think that if people, when I say loud, I think it's that they're continuously talking and they're not listening. And I recognize those people so quickly. And the way I recognize it, and I hope you don't mind me diverging a little bit.
No, please.
Is that I often start a conversation by saying, how are you doing and how is your family? How are your children? And they'll talk for the next 10 or 15 minutes on that subject, their children, this, that, and they won't ask me how my children are.
Right. They won't reciprocate.
Yeah. And I find that, I understand that people like to talk about themselves. They want other people to hear what they've got to say. But if you haven't got that inner sensibility to continue the conversation to me as well, if I'm only there to listen to you, so I do it kind of like as a test. How are your children? How's your family? And within 3 or 4 minutes, I know that person is not going to ask me how my family is doing. And I know that that's a person who, for that moment in time, I do not want to be a part of his or her life. Does that sound...
No.
Is that stingy? Is that greedy?
No. I think there's a litmus test aspect to it. I think that also, and I'm guilty of this, and I'm in sales, right? So a good salesperson is generally a good listener. I tend to think I am, but I'm not a good listener because sometimes I rush to judgment of answering something before somebody completes their sentence.
Yes.
Horribly rude, and I'm working on it.
Yeah.
It's funny is when I edit the podcast, you listen to the ticks and the artifacts that you want to take out, and then you listen, oh, gee, I jumped on his statement or this or that. Man, if we could do that, if I had a recorder when I was live to reel back the words I wish I never said, that would be a great time. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about arrangement, because that kind of jumped out of the 3 songs that I listened to. That really kind of jumped out at me and gave a great fullness and diversity of texture to your music. And I would say the horn section, and believe me, I don't have the chops and the foundation that you have in music, but what I heard was your lyrics and then a conversation with the horns, if that makes sense, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, let me just tell you a story about the horns, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
When I did a cross-country trip with my story journey from Johannesburg in 2018, and it's always been my dream to have a working band or a complete band. And when I came back from that trip, I met my current guitar player. His name is fantastic musician. His name is Bill Titus. Have you heard of Bill?
I have not.
He's a really talented, excellent musician.
Okay.
And he's always working because everyone's looking for him to add to their music. And I'm so honored that he took it upon himself to come in and learn my music. And together we built a band. Nice. And he sent me to talk to a sax player down in Oceanside. His name was Chris Laybourne. And Chris, his name was Crispy Chicken, they used to call him.
Okay.
Obviously, I didn't know him. So this was the end of 2018. He said, "Go and speak to Chris and talk to him about horns and who he can bring in to help you out in your music." This is what Bill said to me. So I went to visit this amazing guy, Chris Laybourne, who tragically passed away last year from cancer. Just a hugely talented sax player, sound engineer, and mentor to many, many different sax players and musicians in general. Anyway, I was sitting down with him, and I had just met him, and I just started to feel this affinity towards him, and he started to talk to me. I started to ask him questions about the music business because I hadn't really been in the music business for that long. And I had just in a matter of like an hour, he gave me so much knowledge about like practical things about how to be a band leader, how to be an effective arranger, how to choose the right people, how to not take what's another word for how to not take junk from people, right, and really be committed to what you're doing. And sometimes people will take advantage of you, especially if it's an original music. Anyway, he introduced me to this young band leader, arranger, horn player. His name is Damien Pacheco. Okay. He invited him into his studio that day that I was there. And what has transpired these last 4 years is that Damien, along with Chris at the time, put together a horn section for me of some of Long Island's most magnificent horn players. And so I'm so grateful and indebted to Chris and to Damien, who arranged all the horn, who arranged the horn section. So what would happen is that Damien would come here to my studio. We'd take out my songs. Let's say there are like 20 songs, and I had certain melodic ideas that I wanted Damien to run with, and I'd start singing. We'd play the tune, and I'd say at this part I want something like da 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 ba ba da 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 ba ba da da, and then he would harmonize that on he's got an amazing ear, and so he would write down these parts, and we'd bring the band in the next time, and slowly but surely we built up a repertoire of 20 songs, most of which have horn sections in it, and it's a collaboration of both Damien's horn talents, Bill's arranging talents, because he can just hear things, and then my songs and my lyrics. But when we're coming to this 3-song EP called Happy to Be Alive, I must give full credit to our sound engineer editor, and producer. His name is Chris Fasulo, and he is an excellent sound engineer. And of course, the sound that you're hearing is, these are good songs. I'd like to think, but they were made so much better by his musical production, by Chris's musical production.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? What came to mind as I'm listening to this arrangement, what came to mind for me is Van Morrison, the way he brings, and he's a brass player as well as a guitarist, and he brings that in, and that you'll hear him scat melodies as well, and that just kind of jumped into my mind as I'm listening to your stuff. Paul Simon. If I took Paul Simon and combine the two, this I'm hearing these textures in it, and that's what I found so kind of cool, and I think our audience will. So let's do this. Tell me a little bit about our next song, "Better Days," how that came about, and then they've heard me talk enough. Let's hear your music after you give me a little inspiration about that.
Well, again, "Better Days" lays into the whole framework of don't be fooled by what you hear in the news. There's still a lot of really great people out there. There's a lot of great things that are happening in our world, and that we should all listen and because better days are coming. It's an anthem of understanding that we are not only living our lives through the eye of the media, that we should be able to make up our own minds about how we want to live our lives, and that we should be listening to each other rather than than watching the TV or watching being influenced by what we see or hear on the internet.
Right. The filter of the 24/7 news cycles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. Social media as well is a great.
We can get stuck in that rut and only tune into those things.
So
all right, let's.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Cut you off. Yeah, that's the premise of Better Days. That better days are still coming. That we should be helping each other and loving each other. Basically, that's the premise of that song.
Great. All right, everybody, let's have a listen to Better Days, and we'll be right back after the song.
Yeah, yeah, la 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 la. Yeah, yeah, la 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 la. Cause I want everyone to hear that peace and love in this world is really near. So don't be fooled by what you read in the news. Just make up your mind, you've been given all the clues. Love your fellow man every day. And if you see me walking along the way, just look at me and smile, you'll know what to say. Time will come when we all will understand. Our time on earth is short and we got to take a stand. Love your fellow man every day. The world is moving in a new direction, so take the time and get used to this new vibration. The light of the sun will shine upon you, its reflection. I wish you all the love in better days. will come when we all will realize that everyone is equal in God's eyes. Color in our veins bleeds into one, and I can see the future blazing in the sun. I wish you all the love, I wish you all the love, I wish you all the love in better days. Everybody. Yeah, la 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 la, yeah, 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 la 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 la, yeah, yeah, la 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 la.
Hey everybody, we're back with Toby Tobias. Toby, what I really found, there's a lot of interesting things about your song. What was really cool was how you started off with the vocals. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah, Better Days was one of the songs that I was not going to do for this particular EP, but since I hadn't, I wrote it many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and I decided, well, at the time was to bring it, to let people hear it better. All the vocals are, I'm the only one singing the vocals on the recording, just overdubbing.
Right.
And that was kind of, I've always enjoyed harmonies, vocal harmonies, really dense, thick vocal harmonies. And I think that also is a throwback from when I grew up in South Africa.
Right,
the black gospel choirs, that the Ladysmith Black Mambazo type of choral harmonies, and there wasn't much harmonizing on that particular tune. So I said to Chris, "Listen, I've got this idea. Let me just put down a part of the song right at the beginning, and let me harmonize." I think it was like 3 or 4 parts on that. And he said, "Yeah, why not?" Because that's where the art really starts, where you just come up with different ideas, different improvisations, and there's going to be something that clicks and that can be put onto the song. And so I did it, and he said, "Well, that's really neat. Let me, clean it up a bit and make it sound good." And he called me a couple of days and he said, "Take a listen to this," and I was blown away. And it was really cool.
Now, the key with that now is when you go to play that live, is how do you duplicate that live?
That's true.
Right? How do you find somebody that can harmonize with you? And that is key too.
Yeah, that is true. I never thought about that. That is, I guess I should have.
That's why you talk to podcast hosts, so we can bring you to reality and kind of help you out.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that, because it doesn't really start that way.
Right.
It starts in a more rhythmic manner with drums and guitar, as you can hear just after that harmonic, that vocal harmonization. Then it comes the drum and the guitar pretty soon thereafter. Right, so that's really the way this song starts.
I tell you, I feel like I'm cheating myself. Like, I want to have you on two or three more episodes, because I think there's so much seriously, that we need to talk about. But I do want to cover this. Let's talk about what you have coming up.
Sure.
Some of the events that you come up. I think you have something you let me know.
Yeah.
Let us know.
There's one event that is really close to my heart that is coming up quite soon, and it's been a very difficult event to put together. I am the host and presenter, as well as a performer, at a brand new music festival here in Huntington on Manor Road. It's called the Manor Farm Global Music Festival. I have between 4 to 6 bands who are coming to play on August the 21st.
Okay, great.
From noon till 7. There have been some difficulties with the town and with the bands and getting all the documentation necessary in order for this thing to take place. But I'm very confident and holding thumbs and praying that this is actually going to take place, because we need to hear music from other parts of the world on Long Island. We need to hear what other cultures are doing, what other people are doing. There's too much I don't want to say this, but I think I'm going to. If you want to cut it out, you're more than welcome. But there's too much white music being played here on Long Island. There's not enough diversity. People hate that word diversity. But that's what makes our country click. You know, there are people, there are cultures from all over the world here. Why are we so centric to what we grew up listening to?
Right, right. And that's, as an older man, I agree with you, because there is that tendency to reminisce. That's why it's the time of the tribute band. It's all reminiscing. And that can kind of block out your bandwidth for other music. Even my daughter Faith told me, she said, Dad, there's a big Latin culture here on Long Island. She says, yeah, you've got to find some Latin musicians. Yeah. And even early on in my podcast, I had Rory Kelly tell me, hey, you had no gals on the on your podcast. I'm like, I wasn't thinking, And you know what? It just enriched me. Both Debbie and I found music that I never would have been introduced to. And that's my hope for this podcast, is to get that exposure to say, hey, you know what? Broaden your horizons, people. Instead of turning on the radio or turning on satellite TV, put on a podcast that's going to have these conversations and introduce you to other music. And I don't know, I feel like I've grown from it, really. It's just I've got a great appreciation. So you've got the Manor Farm.
So that's on the 21st. 21st of August.
In Huntington. So this podcast will definitely be out before then.
Yes.
So we're happy to promote that.
Thank you. And then on the 22nd, it's a Monday night, I'm recording a video version of my song Happy to Be Alive. And if any of your listeners would like to join us, we need backup dancers and people who are just going to enjoy the song. And we're performing it at a really cool nightclub in Huntington called Industry.
Oh, yeah. I know
Industry.
It well. Yeah.
That is a really cool place. It's going to be on August the 22nd. That's a Monday night. We're meeting at 6:30. And we're going to start the video recording at 7. I've got an amazing videographer who's coming to record the song. We've got about 30 people coming, and we can do with another 20 more to make it a really vibrant event.
Do you have any 60-year-old gray-haired guys, very handsome with goatees in it yet?
No, but we would love some of them.
Okay, all right, I'm available. I'll make myself available.
Come on over.
If it's important.
It would be great to see you there. And then the one of the big shows of our summer, playing original music here on Long Island, is on the 26th. We are playing. We're very happy to play at an event in Northport called Happenings on Main Street. And that's on Friday, August the 26th. We start at 7 p.m. We go to about 8:30. And it's going to be my full 9-piece band playing at the gazebo in Northport Harbor Park.
Great.
And it's just a really cool event. Everyone sits out with their chairs and their picnic baskets. And if the weather is good, there's no better place to be than Northport Harbor Park on a Friday night. It's really very Northport's
so what
a beautiful
we'll do
village. In
the chapter marks, we'll have all the web links for all these events so people can jump to it.
Sure.
And it sounds like something that's great. Hey, I want to talk about this.
There's just
we talk. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's just one more event that I would like to let people know about, and it's a Journey from Johannesburg event, which I'm playing at the Congregation of Light in Huntington. It's on Pulaski Road. It's going to be a show for Journey from Johannesburg at the Gathering of Light in Interspiritual Leadership on Pulaski Road in Huntington. It starts at 12 noon. It'll finish around 2 o'clock. And you can find more information about that show on my website. We would love to see people come and enjoy the music and the visual slides and the narrative that I tell people about. It's a story about my life. And come and join in. So that's a show that's taking place on October the 22nd.
Sounds great. Now I want to jump into, we had a sidebar about our final song called Rise Up. And my impression of the title was, gee, this sounds like a revolutionary type of battle cry, rise up. And yet, in listening to it, to me, it is rising up to the occasion to engage in conversation and building bridges.
I love that.
That's my impression of it. So titles can be misconceiving,
Yes.
from first glance, but then as you listen to the message, or one of the messages that at least I'm grasping from what I'm hearing, it talks about rising up to these conversations, and which I'm guilty of. In a country in the United States where we're seeing so much division, it's very easy, I think, for us to dismiss people as other and not to love the other for whom they are, and get beyond some things and have conversations. So,
Wow, that's beautiful.
Let's talk about how that came about, and then we'll listen to the song.
Well, again, I think I'm not quite sure what the inspiration for that song was, but I wrote it, I think, in 2020.
Okay.
During the time of COVID, time of turmoil in America. And I just thought, I've got to get this message out there where we have to listen to each other. We have to learn how to speak to each other, how to connect with each other. Mm-hmm. And I thought a lot about my black brothers and sisters here in America, how we are so alienated from that group of people. At least I am. I don't want to point fingers at anyone else. And how we don't really know about each other's lives. And I think that it impressed upon me the need for me, let people know how important it is to embrace all people, and to learn about all people, so that we can further understand what it means to live in America being that type of person. And you'll never know until you go and speak to those people and learn how to learn from him or her about what it's like to live in America being that type of person. And I think that was the real impetus and the background for that song.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a listen to Rise Up.
I don't believe I'm the perfect man, but I'm just trying to be the best I can. And if you don't agree with all of my views, you can still be my friend. You got nothing to lose. Well, I don't mean to sound vague and small. If you love your fellow man, you'll feel 10 feet tall. In this day and age of fear and strife, people around the world fighting for their life. Rise up, little baby, rise up. You got one more battle, 'cause the war's not won. Rise up, little baby, rise up, and I'll show you how. You gotta hold the hand of your brother. You gotta love your sister. One day she'll be your mother. Rise up, little baby, rise up. The time is now. What I have to say, please don't turn a deaf ear and walk away. 'Cause what I really mean is clear for all to see. All men on this earth were born to be free. We're living proof we're all the same. All the colors unite in an eternal flame. We mustn't give up, we gotta push on through. All the people of the world, just like me and you. Rise up, little baby, rise up. You got one more battle, 'cause the war's not won. Rise up, little baby, rise up, and I'll show you how. We gotta hold the hand of your brother. You gotta love your sister, one day she'll be your mother. Rise up, little baby, rise up, and I'll show you how. You gotta hold the hand of your brother. You gotta love your sister, one day she'll be your mother. Rise up, little baby, rise up, the time is now. Rise up, little baby, rise up, the time is now.
Hey, everybody, we're back. Let me tell you, Rise Up is a song for our times, and I'm going to listen to it a lot because I need its lessons to kind of hit me more. You know,
Thanks.
I think we all need to improve, but this will be a good reminder for me, and I really thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you, Steve.
We got a lot of great stuff coming up. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Thank you.
And thank Mike Nugent for introducing us. I really appreciate that. And I end my podcast often with this, and my good friend Bob told me this. He said, Steve, you know, we can account for what we have in our bank, some things that we own. We can never account for the time we have left here on Earth. And the fact that you gave me your time and your music and conversation to share for this past hour or so is a true blessing. And I really thank you for that. All right.
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to have you come back because we're definitely going to revisit this in the fall because we've got, I think, a lot to talk about that we haven't even touched on. And I look forward to having that conversation. So thanks, Toby.
Thank you very much, Steve. I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, everybody. Peace. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace. Thank you for listening, and please support our musicians. If you like the podcast, please rate, comment, and subscribe. If you want to partner with us, visit gigdestiny.com. Hit that donate button. We appreciate your support to keep the conversation alive. Take care. Be well.